topics and opinions expressed on the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4WN Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4WN Radio, its employees, or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4WN Radio.
And welcome to Chasing Purpose. I'm your host, Kathleen Conner. I am thrilled to be here today and super excited about the topic. So if this is your first time here today, I'm really glad you found your way in, and I hope you stay a while. If you've been here before, well, welcome back. So today we're talking about boundaries. I know, sounds like a tough subject. We'll get through it. Come on, let's listen. And I want to start with an image, a visual. And what I want you to think about is you standing there. And what you're standing there with is a hula hoop. Yes, a hula hoop. Stay with me now. You'll get it. A hula hoop around your waist. It's right there. It's visible. It's maybe a barrier about 1.5 feet away from your body. And it's in every direction. This is your boundary. People can actually see the hula hoop. They can stand really close to you outside of it. They can talk with you, they can laugh with you, they can connect with you, and quite frankly, they can be in a relationship with you too. What they can't do is step inside the hula hoop without your permission. That circle around your waist is your space, and you get to decide who comes in and when they do, under what conditions. And here's the thing most people get wrong about boundaries. They think that they're walls and that they're hard to build. They're just scary at first. We'll get through it, so keep listening. They think setting a boundary means shutting people out, someone they love out. They think a boundary might be ending a relationship. It might be being cold or cruel. That's not. A wall would be 10 feet tall, maybe out of concrete, certainly a barrier surrounding you where no one can get through. No one can get close to you, and you're isolated, and they're outside of it. The hula hoop is different. People can still see you, and you can see them. They can hear you, you can hear them. You can reach out and touch them, and they can touch you. And someone standing right outside of the hula hoop, they can talk, connect, and laugh with you. They can be in a relationship with you. They can step closer when you invite them in. They can step back when you ask them to step back. A boundary is visible, it's clear. And boundaries aren't about isolation. They're about connection on terms with everybody that's sustainable. And here's what no one talks about. What actually costs you when you don't have a boundary. And it's not vague. Someday, when you think about it, it can be today in your daily life. You can set a boundary. When you have no boundaries, you are always available, always. Your time isn't yours. Your energy isn't yours. Your attention isn't yours. You're on call. And if you remember the old pagers that went off, I carried one for years. And when they went off, you were on alert. You were there. You were focused on what needed to be done. And that's what that feels like when you don't have a boundary. You're on call for everyone else around you all the time, and it never stops. You wake up tired because you went to bed thinking about everybody else, about someone else's problem that you need to solve. You get through your day running on fumes because whatever's left is for everyone else. And they took their share first. You go to sleep already thinking about what tomorrow's obligations, roles, and duties are going to have to bring you. And here's the thing. You've been doing this so long that you think it's normal. You think it is just what life is like. You think exhaustion is the price of being good. And it's not. It's not. It's the price of having no hula hoop and no boundary. When you have no boundary, Resentment builds. Slowly at first, it creeps in like a flash of irritation. When someone asks you to do something for them and they don't ask nicely, they just expect you to do it. It's a quiet feeling of being taken advantage of. The moment where you catch yourself thinking, does anybody ask how I'm doing? And you push it back down. You tell yourself you're being ungrateful if you have those feelings. You remind yourself how much you love these people and how much you need to do for them. And resentment doesn't go anywhere. It just gets buried underground and deep inside of you. And the underground resentment, it's toxic. It eats away at yourself, your body, and your relationships. And that stuff, that boundary, that feeling of wanting to do everything for everybody makes you pull back in ways that you don't even realize. It poisons the well of yourself and the very connections that you're trying to save, and you're sacrificing yourself to maintain. It doesn't, if you don't set a boundary to protect yourself, then who do you set it for? It is to protect yourself. And the relationship that you set it within, once you set it, will start feeling different. It will start feeling like you're setting limits because you are. And those limits can be set healthy and with grace. But when you don't have boundaries, you lose yourself, not dramatically, but gradually. The things you wanted, the opinions you've held, the person you were becoming, they get crowded because there's no room. Every available interview is occupied by someone else by not having a boundary. And the sneaky thing about not having a boundary is that it happens so slowly. You don't even notice it until you wake up one day and think, gosh, I've lost myself. You look at yourself in the mirror every day and you say to yourself, who am I? And what have I become? And that feeling is because you haven't set a boundary with grace and with clarity. And those things have to come. Let me tell you about the first boundary I remember setting. Now, when I graduated from college, it was in the early 1990s. And, at the time when we were graduating, our goal was for our first job to pay us our age. Now, I graduated just before my 22nd birthday. My first job out of college, it paid me a whopping $22,800. I met my goal and I was excited about it. But for some reason, that's what we all talked about for our college graduation, was making our age in salary. That was important to us. It was a goal that we all set. And we talked about it openly. And that was what I achieved. So I went away. I moved away from my parents and moved to the other side of the country. And to my first experience moving out of the nest other than college itself. And college was still close to my family's house. I could still drive there within 55 minutes or so and still show up on the weekends or unexpectedly for meals. Anyway, I was at my first job. I was in my first committed relationship. And by committed, I mean paper written. It was a marriage, and we were young. He was 2 years older than I. And he and I lived in a very traditional upbringing. And with those traditions, it also meant maybe things needed to be done at a certain pace and at a certain time. So we had to get married by 22. We had to have a house by 25. We had to have babies by 30. And all of that seemed good in talk. But when it started to happen, when we got married, when we bought our house, and then the next goal was kids, I started a career in those times. I felt like I was starting to become myself, starting to really branch out and expand my wings. I was meeting new people, new cultures, doing new things, experiencing, learning, doing lots of things I had never done before in a different environment without the control and presence of my family on a daily basis, other than phone calls, of course. And as we went on, there was pressure and discussions about me becoming a teacher. He and I both grew up with teachers in our family. It was an honorable role, and we respected teachers tremendously. We were raised by them, and we were around them in our family unit all the time. But me being a teacher, that didn't seem like something I wanted to do. It didn't seem like something that I would be satisfied in. And I was receiving a lot of pressure from him. Lots of discussions around how great it would be to be a mom and a teacher. I would have summers off. I would have the vacations at the same time the kids would. There was a lot of discussions about what I needed to be for my career, for him, and for our family, even though we didn't have one other than ourselves. So it went on for months. It seemed like years about me being pressured into being a teacher. And I finally relented and went down to the local university, scheduled an appointment with the head of admissions, and talked to this nice woman about what I was feeling and what I was hearing at home and the pressures that I was under. And she heard my hesitation. She heard my love of the profession and knew that it wasn't something that I could do or felt that I could do, not because I couldn't do it by passing the grades or getting into college, that certification program, but just wouldn't feel satisfied with it. Anyway, during the conversation, she asked me to come back the next Saturday and take what they called the vocational exam at that time. I, of course, said yes. It was for free. And what was it? Just a lot of my time out of the way. And maybe it would glean something. Well, I went down that Saturday and took a 4-hour exam. Now, it wasn't like taking the SATs. It was quite easy. It was like a personality exam and a personality test. There was no pass or fail. It was just what I felt like, what I knew, how I felt myself, and how I knew myself. And after the test, I came back the next Tuesday. And in those days, things were very paper driven. They were very much, into a binder. I received a binder from her the following Tuesday. It was a 1-inch binder filled with probably 100 or 200 pages of what my exam results were. I was like, oh my gosh, what did I get into? What is this? It looks like the Bible. Anyway, we didn't go page by page, but the section and the answers were right there in front of me. And it led me to know that I was right, that in 100 vocational questions or careers that I was asked about, 100 of them. Now think about that. 100 professions that I was asked about in 4 hours on a Saturday, that I sat there and answered honestly and candidly of what I wanted to do. The teaching profession, one I admired and was surrounded by through my whole life, was number 99. There it was on paper, number 99. That's where it fell out of 100, which was number 99 for career choices that I should make. The closest thing to being a teacher was number 5. And it wasn't even really an academic teacher. It was a bus driver. That was the thing. For number 5 was a bus driver. And when I saw that, I was like, oh my God, I could certainly do that. I could see myself engaging with the kids as they entered the bus. Hey, Julie, nice shoes. Look at you shining today. Hey, Max, how are you? Fist bumps all around, right? Get in the back, buckle up. Let's get going. That's the way I saw myself, more as a bus driver than ever as a teacher. Anyway, when I received the binder and I went through it, this nice woman, the admissions officer, was kind enough to take her time, but I knew already what the answers were going to be. I went home that day with the binder, hesitant to tell the results, because I knew the expectations that I had from somebody else was to be a teacher, was to be a stay-at-home mom during the summers and to be a teacher, have the same vacations as our kids, even though we didn't have any, right? So anyway, I went home, waited a couple days, of course, to build my courage and set a boundary, and sat at the dining room table and said, hey, I know, and I've been hesitant about being a teacher and enrolling into this program, and here's why. Because at that time, my career was getting to be really important. Now, I wasn't making $22,800 anymore. I was into what I thought was a career. I was building, getting acknowledged, and having advancements. I was making almost three times that amount of money. Now, again, it wasn't about money. It was about learning and making friends and building relationships. And that's what I was doing every day. Now, I wasn't teaching, but I was learning, and that was more important to me than anything else. And I was building relationships. So I went home a couple days later and I opened up the binder. Well, I didn't open it. I sat on the kitchen table and I said, hey, I want to tell you, I know that you really want me to be a teacher, but it's not for me. It's not something that I think I can do. It's not something that I think I could be happy at doing. And there was some frustration with him. There was some anger. There was some, I can't believe you're doing this to us, to me, and how it affected him in my decision. I opened up the binder and showed him that number 99 was the teacher, and that everything else, all of the top 10 or 25, were exactly things I wanted to do. There were things around relationships. There were things about selling. There were things about being around people. There were things about other activities and other things that I enjoyed besides being a teacher because I knew I wouldn't enjoy it. Of course, I could be good at it. I could be good at anything I wanted to do. I just wouldn't feel satisfied or fulfilled. So I set a boundary with him. And that was the very first time that I had to and wanted to set a boundary with somebody and said, you know what? I'm just not going to do it. I'm not going to roll myself into a career, into a course, or into classes or college, get a certificate, and do something every single day that I'm not going to enjoy just for you and for a life that we don't even have yet. And that started. The boundary started with some anger and some resistance from him. And I realized that I had to stay true to myself. I had to just keep going with what I knew and what the test had shown. The results were there. I didn't have to do something that I wanted to do. And here was the facts that I wouldn't be good at it. Now, that was important to me. And I stuck my ground and I stayed there. And it was true. It was hard to listen to him and to listen to his disappointment and his anger and the choices that I had made for the betterment of myself, which would therefore be the betterment of our family. That's what was important, right? Me to be happy and to be satisfied so that I contribute in a happy and satisfied manner within a unit, right? Contributing member. So anyway, it was long and it was arduous and it was costly because at that time I realized that things were different with us. It started to be anger, it started to be resentment, and it started to be that I had chosen something and I was a different person, and I had that's what he wanted, and we needed to do things, and I needed to do things for him and for this hypothetical family that we didn't have the 2.3 kids or whatever it was going to be. And I started to realize that it wasn't worth it. And yeah, there was guilt surrounded by that, and it showed up heavy, but it was worth it. It was worth it for me to set my boundaries so I didn't have a career for 30 years or whatever it was in a teaching role that I wouldn't be satisfied with. And quite honestly, I might enjoy it day one or the first day of school, but after maybe a week or so, I'd enjoy it much less and I'd be resentful and angry and hate showing up every single day. And who wants a life like that? So the guilt did show up and it was heavy. It was overwhelming. And guilt likes doing that. It likes telling you and letting you think that you've set the wrong limits. And guilt specifically came not vague, but with discomfort. Those couple of days waiting to have that discussion, it was agonizing. It presented itself with belly aches. You know what that's like, a nervous stomach. And it set itself with headaches and lack of sleep and maybe some probably unhealthy habits, eating unhealthy and probably drinking a little bit more than I should at the time anyway. But the guilt was there. I knew what it was. I was raised with it. We all probably had a level of guilt with some of the choices and some of our traditional values that we were raised with, but it wasn't bad enough that I couldn't push through it. I couldn't see myself in a life living for someone else's dream, someone else's reality, and just being miserable about it. So I had to settle in. And guilt played itself over and over again in our conversations with what I wasn't doing, how I wasn't being, how I had changed, how I was a different person, how I wanted different things. And I kept saying, yes, I did. I did want different things. I did want my career. Now, if anybody knows astrology, and I do, and I've been practicing it for a long time, and I believe a lot in it, and I believe a lot in our birth charts and all of the things that come with that. And so I will tell you and share with you that the sun, which is a huge and one of the most impactful signs out there in astrology, lands in my 10th house, which is my career house, which means it's always going to be important to me. And I'm always going to want to shine in it. And that was important. And I knew that through this life lesson. So there is no such way of doing things without a little bit of guilt. That's a fantasy because the guilt is what's showing up and it's trying to tell you that what you're doing is wrong. And the guilt is evidence that you're just breaking a pattern. It's not evidence that you're being selfish. It's saying over and over again that the guilt is evidence. It's a data point. you're breaking a pattern. So the guilt is telling you this feels uncomfortable. This isn't something I'm used to. Of course, we're setting a boundary, maybe for the first time. And that first boundary I set at that dining room table, it was uncomfortable. It took me days to do. It took me meetings with someone else. It took me a test to take. All things that I had already known that I just needed evidence and maybe validation in having the courage and confidence to not procrastinate anymore in a difficult conversation. I had a conversation yesterday and someone told me about passionate and compassionate conflict. And that's what that brought me. Again, it brought me some headaches and some belly aches as well. But the guilt was not evidence that I was wrong. The guilt was evidence just that I was shifting, that our pattern was changing. And when you spend years prioritizing everyone else's needs or desires or their future of what your life should be like, it tends to sound a lot like when you set that boundary, like you're being selfish, like you're not meeting their needs because you've changed. Well, you're not meeting your needs because it's not my responsibility to meet their needs. It's not your responsibility to meet their needs. It's their responsibility to meet their needs and your responsibility to meet your own needs. And that's what's important, is that you have to know the difference, because you'll get sucked up and drained and exhausted trying to live a performative life that just doesn't work for you anymore, because quite frankly, that life isn't yours. It's someone else's. It's someone else's needs. And it's not necessary. It's not what you should be doing. And when you spend years doing it, though, you keep saying, gosh, I just have to. It's my role. It's my duty. It's not. Stop saying that. It's not your role and duty to make someone else happy or to fulfill their needs. You can certainly influence someone's happiness and needs and make sure that they are doing the right things in a healthy manner to create them themselves, but you shouldn't fulfill them yourselves. And that's not being cruel or feeling cruel. It's not. It's being honest. And guilt can be pretty loud. Even your partner, when you're having that discussion, can be pretty loud. People, when they lose control of a situation or of someone else's emotions, tend to get louder. And loudness and volume do not change impact. It only changes the volume and the noise. And it's like dealing with a child or something else. When you yell at them, they may hear the first one or two words out of your mouth and your tone, but they shut down and they turn you off. So being loudest isn't the best approach. It's just noise. And that isn't helpful for anybody. So right after you say your boundary and right after you set it, you just pause. And I know that silence will feel agonizing. It'll feel painful, and maybe the stomach problems will come up and the headaches might start, but sit in it. Don't change. Just sit in the silence. If someone has to turn up the volume and try to control the situation, you don't have to participate. And most importantly, you don't have to get triggered by their opinions. They're trying to convince you of their feelings. Those aren't your feelings. Let them have their feelings, and you don't need to do anything about them. Let them feel their feelings, and you feel yours. Don't apologize for having to set a boundary or a limit. You're going to feel guilty. You're going to second guess yourself, especially at first. The first time, it's going to be agonizing. It's going to be hard. It's going to take days. And you may need that evidence. You may need that thick binder of facts so that you can prove your case. But you don't have to. You may just need it the first time, maybe the second time. But after a while, you'll get the understanding and the feeling of what a boundary feels like. And setting it isn't pushing people out. It's actually letting them stay in a relationship that's more healthy for them and more healthy for you. It's sustainable because you both are participating at a healthy and productive manner. Not setting a boundary is not doing that. You're going to wonder if setting a boundary might be harsh. You might feel like it's harsh and set the boundary anyway. The harshness won't last. That feeling of guilt and being cruel, it's only a fear. It's only a feeling. Let it pass. Sit with it and let it pass. Do it anyway. And before you go any further, I have a lot of women that have problems within my clients that have problems setting boundaries. I don't know what it is. Men have problems with them too, but most of my clients are females, and they feel a lot of resentment. They know what it feels like to be drained. They know that something isn't working, and they can't name it specifically. The thing that needs to change is that you're not setting a boundary, and you're not broken. You've spent so long ignoring your own signals that you've stopped being able to read them clearly. You don't know what they are anymore because they come and go every single day. Your resentment is a map. And whenever it feels like the most resentment in your life, that's where the boundary is missing the most. So let's say that again. Wherever you feel the most resentment, or the most dread, or the most hesitation within a conversation or a connection, that's where the boundary is missing the most. That's where you're avoiding setting the boundary, but that's where it's needed the most. Think about it. Where do you feel taken advantage of? Where do you feel invisible? Where do you feel maybe a little dread in showing up every day? And where do you keep giving and feel like you're never giving enough? That's the location that the boundary is missing. That's the location that your hula hoop has to be present. That's it. Start with that one, the one that's costing you the most right now. And name the specific behavior that needs to change. Not, I need to be nicer. I need to be better. I need to do more. That's not a boundary. That's a wish. A boundary is specific. It's a behavioral change. It's clear. What I need you to do is to stop commenting about this. And maybe it's, I need to stop commenting about myself. The hardest critic is the internal one we have about ourselves. So when we look in the mirror, most women, again, I can just generalize, we look at ourselves and say, I need to stop making comments about my body. I need to see all the good. And you need to set boundaries with people that you can only be available when you can be available and not when they need you to be available. And it can sound like when a coworker comes by your office continually to chit chat, it can sound like, I have a deadline and I can't do this right now. But if you come back in an hour, I might be available then. Or I have a really busy day. Maybe Thursday is better for us to do lunch and catch up. You set a boundary slowly and with specifics. You don't leave a conversation or relationship or hard situation abruptly. I know we all have a tendency to do that. When we get in a fight or an argument or a negotiation that might not be going our way, what we do is we want to run. We want to slam the door and walk away quickly. That doesn't work. What we need to do, if we have that feeling, is say, you know what? I need some time. I need a couple hours or 20 minutes. Give me 5 minutes to compose myself, to gather my thoughts so that I can come back in a more healthy and productive manner. And believe me, that's a boundary worth setting. You don't want to walk away from any relationship at all, whether work or personal, and just walk away with your energy in an angry or disruptive manner. What you want to do is say, hey, I'm not healthy right now, and this conversation isn't healthy or productive, so I'm going to take a break. I'm going to step back. I'm going to come back, though. More importantly, that's what we need to do. We need to make sure that the person doesn't feel abandoned. We don't walk away without setting a clear time frame that we'll be back. We'll let them know we're coming back. Don't worry about me. I'm not leaving you forever. I just need some time to compose myself. So when we have to leave with urgency or anger or whatever, because things are unhealthy and we don't want to escalate them, we choose the right approach in setting a boundary and saying, hey, I'll be back. I'm not abandoning you. You don't have to say it like that, because that then turns the issue to them, their fear of abandonment. You just say, I need a couple minutes. I don't have time to talk right now about this. I have to clear my head, and make sure that they know that you're going to be back to listen, and you're going to be back to re-engage on the same conversation, just in a healthier manner. Now, that's hard to do, the first time, but you can do it. We can all do it. And it's setting a boundary, it's setting limits when knowing that you're being pushed too far out of your own triggers and out of your own past patterns, that things aren't helpful when it gets to that you need to take a deep breath and you need to pause. You don't need to convince anybody that you need a pause. You just need to do it. You don't walk away slamming doors or with energy that's abrupt. You say, hey, I can't do this right now. I have a headache. I got to go. Let me come back in a little while. Maybe 5 minutes, maybe 10, maybe 3 days, whatever it's going to take. So that's what happens. Those are things that happen. Those are the boundaries. And I go back every time I think about how scared I was at 23 or 25, I guess I was, 24, sitting at that table with that binder, knowing that I was going to displease and disappoint someone that I cared for, someone that I had committed to. And that commitment and that conversation was hard. It caused me a lot of angst, but it also made me realize that being honest with myself and with the results and honest with him also made me see myself in a different way and made me see the relationship in a different way. It made me realize that he expected something that I couldn't do. He expected a role and a position and a duty for me to fulfill that just wasn't there for me. And yeah, it was the beginning of the end. There was a lot of other factors there as well, but I just knew that I just couldn't be a teacher to satisfy his needs when it wasn't satisfying mine. So anyway, setting that first boundary was tough. Setting them every day is tough, but they get easier. The more you do them, the less tough it gets. Hard things are hard. That's why they call them hard. So you can do this. People will push back. They will get upset. They tell you that you're disappointing them, that you may be overreacting to the outcome, whatever it may be. They may feel like you're the problem, that you're the one that's changed, that you're the one that's doing things different than what you've discussed, or maybe what you've agreed to. And it's easy for you to panic because they're panicking, because their discomfort feels like proof your boundary is wrong. It's not wrong. Their discomfort is proof they benefited and want to benefit from you not having a boundary. When someone gets upset, because you're setting a limit, it's because they liked the version of you and the relationship where you were without the boundary. And whatever they wanted, you tolerated. Whatever they needed, you did. They weren't respecting you. They were taking advantage of maybe your personality, your flexibility, your care and compassion, your role to want to perform for them. And now you're asking them to adjust. And you're allowed to set limits. And if they can't respect it, that's on them. That their lack of flexibility and understanding isn't your responsibility. They don't get to access you in a disrespectful way. People think when someone pushes back on a boundary, the person setting the boundary may need to have to defend it or to walk away from it. Maybe they think, well, that didn't work out. Maybe next time I'll try it differently. No, keep trying. Do it. You don't need to convince anybody that it's your boundary. It's yours. You don't need to defend it. You don't need to explain it. You don't need for anybody else to know that it's reasonable. You don't need to justify yourself. You set the boundary and that's it. End of conversation. With grace, clarity, and kindness, and always with compassion. And if they push back, you keep reinforcing the boundary. You keep saying it softly. Nope, this is what's important to me. I feel that this is a decision I want to set with. This is a decision I feel strongly about. Those are the things that you say. You don't negotiate, you reinforce. Now think about the hula hoop again. It's a great visual. Think about it around your waist. Now, they tried to step inside of your space. You held your hand up and said, nope, it's my hula hoop. Stay out of it. Stay out of the hula hoop. They get pushed away. You don't ignore that you've pushed them away. You understand that that's the boundary you set. You step back. So instead of pushing them away, you step back to protect your space. The hula hoop's still there. You just step further back. You're not pushing them away. You're moving away. And boundaries without reinforcement are just suggestions. And people always ignore suggestions, especially if they don't agree with them. And what does reinforcement usually and actually look like? It says, I'm not discussing this anymore. It says, I feel important about this, and that should be enough. I don't need you to understand this. I need you to respect it. That's a boundary. You don't need to explain it. And they can bring it back up again and again and again. And you can still choose to not engage gracefully. You can leave the room with kindness. You can end a call with care. You can pull back and walk away with compassion. You don't need to explain why. You just move away. You say you need advance notice when someone comes over or shows up unexpectedly or unannounced, like the coworker, right? You can have them stand in your doorway every day, and you can tell them it's not a good time. They'll hear it, maybe not the first time. Maybe they'll laugh it off the second time, but eventually, if you set a boundary and not just push them away, it's not about pushing someone away, it's about moving away. It's about setting a boundary where you say, I just don't have the energy for this today. I just can't do it. And they'll respect it every time you do it with a little more respect and understanding. You might feel terrible about it the first time, maybe even the second time, maybe even the 10th time. You're caring, you're compassionate, right? It feels like you're disappointing people. That feels hard. It's not hard. It's not your life's goal to not disappoint people. When you do that, you're disappointing yourself more. And here's what makes it hard. The other person may react. They're going to get hurt and angry and disappointed. They may even be dramatic and loud. And you're going to feel it in every part of your system. Your nervous system's going to act up, your headaches, your stomach, you're going to feel jitters, your palms may sweat. That's not your fault. That's just your reaction to their behavior. It's their reaction to your limit, and that's not your responsibility. That's not yours to carry. You're not responsible for managing other people's feelings about your boundary. It's your boundary. You're responsible for holding the boundary's line. Think of the hula hoop. Someone gets too close to you, you don't have to push them away. You move back clearly with care, compassion, and grace. The moment you start to reinforce the boundary and manage to not react to their reaction, you're doing things. One thing you're doing is that you're acknowledging that this needs to feel better for me. And how it feels better for me is to not lean into an unhealthy and unproductive conversation. It's to move away from it and move away from those situations and those people. Another thing to do is that that it's not your responsibility to carry other people's emotions. That's exhausting. That's like a wheelbarrow full of lead. You don't need to pick it up and you don't need to push it anywhere. So set your boundary, stay with it, because every time you reinforce it, you're proving to yourself and to others that you mean it. The hula hoop isn't rigid, it's round. It's there to be seen and felt, but not as a wall. It's there to be seen as a limitation and as a boundary that you're setting for yourself and for others so that your relationship is healthy and sustainable. And what happens when you reinforce it constantly? You stop waiting and asking for permission. You stop checking whether it's okay to protect your own self and own feelings. And you stop running a calculation as to, is this worth it? Is the consequence and the risks going to be awkward afterwards? You just know, this is my limit. This is my boundary. This is what happens when I can stay healthy and sustainable and productive within a relationship. This is how it has to be, with kindness, care, compassion, and always grace. This is what happens when you set your limit and enforce a boundary. It's clarity. It's not harmful or harsh. And clarity is the most powerful things anybody, especially women, can have. And here's what most people think. Boundaries aren't about being in control or controlling other people's behaviors. It's about controlling your own life, your own behaviors, and your own reactions. You can't make someone else stop doing something, but you can decide whether you tolerate that something and when you can't tolerate it. And when they cross that line, that hula hoop, you decide what happens next. You can do whatever you want with that, right? You can acknowledge it, you can accept it, or you can pull back. They can try to do whatever they want, and they will. They will push your boundaries and the edges to their limit and to your limit. You have to keep and reinforce it. You decide whether you're going to stick with that limit and that boundary for yourself. It's completely different doing it for others than doing it for yourself. Most people think a boundary is something that you put on to somebody, into a relationship, or you put a boundary on another person, like a fence, like a wall you're installing to keep them out. It's not. Boundary is something that you put on yourself. It's a commitment to make to yourself and how you'll behave when your limits are crossed. You acknowledge it, you pull back, and you say, not this time. Again, with kindness, compassion, care, and always grace. The boundary isn't, you're not allowed to step over this or criticize me. The boundary is, when you criticize me or step over, I'm going to tell you that I feel that this conversation's unhealthy. I'm going to tell you that I think it's unproductive. I'm going to set that limit, that boundary, and I'm going to reinforce it and enforce it. You're not trying to control them. You're trying to control you. This matters because it takes the power struggle out of it. You're not trying to change anybody. You're not waiting and wanting them to decide when they can respect you. You're deciding regardless of who they are and what role they play, what boundary you're going to set with them, and when and where you're going to let them in that's sustainable, healthy, and productive. That's what matters. Everything within a boundary has to be for yourself. The outcome is information. The outcome either moves you forward or pauses you to reset so that you can move forward. Someone tells you you're being too sensitive, too rigid, too demanding. Here's what they're really saying. I don't want to respect how you're behaving right now. Now remember, that's their feelings. That's their inconvenience of how you're behaving. That's their not wanting to see you change. That's their feelings and not yours. So don't adjust your expectations to accommodate their discomfort. Their expectations are about you being what they need. And your expectations are about you being reasonable. And their behavior is their behavior. Here's what a boundary exposes. Some people will actually respect you more. Some relationships with a boundary will get stronger. And that's what we all need to do. We need to have stronger, healthier, and more productive relationships with boundaries. And it starts with a boundary because boundaries keep relationships and people in our lives in a sustainable manner. It's respectful. It's valuable. We're all contributing at the same level because a boundary is set, because no one crosses it. A boundary strengthens real relationships. They expose fake ones. And here's what we actually lose when it teaches us that someone exits. It shows you that a relationship was really built on. In my relationship, however many years ago in those early 1990s, it did fall apart. It didn't fall apart because I wasn't going to be a teacher. It fell apart because not wanting to be a teacher made me realize what I wanted to be, and that was different than what he wanted me to be. And so we struggled along. We did the best we could, but I didn't want the same life that he wanted. So we did the best thing that we could, and we ended it for ourselves. And we might not have done it with the right tools, but we did it with the only tools we had at the time. So that was a lesson learned, and my lesson and my boundary that I set. I didn't want to be a teacher. I wasn't going to be a teacher. The facts showed that I wasn't going to be a great teacher. I would show up every day on 99 on a list of 100 that I could be successful at it. It wasn't what I wanted. So a boundary is not about mutual respect. It's not about who cares for who more. It's about tolerating behavior that's healthy and not tolerating behavior that's unhealthy and that doesn't work for you. That's not a loss, that's a revelation. Losing someone or a relationship or a career or a situation hurts. It always does. It's supposed to, because you cared. Everyone cares in a relationship. You cared about those people. You cared about the life that you have. You cared about the situation or the job that you held. And you certainly cared about people. We all do. And we wanted to learn about that. We chose ourselves and our comfort and our role and honoring who we wanted to be with a boundary instead of living someone else's life. The guilt will always come back every single time you try to enforce a boundary. It'll make you question whether you're being harsh or selfish. The more you do it, the less you'll hear the guilt. You may always feel it, but the less you'll have to react to it. And you shouldn't react to it. The guilt is there as a data point. It's there to remind us that, you sure you got yourself? You sure you know that you have the facts and that this is what you feel? It's not there to have you change your mind. It's just there as a data point to say, all right, this is new. Your nervous system's feeling something different. Your head is aching, your stomach is rolling. You know those nervous feelings that you get. Your palms are sweating and you're hesitant to have a conversation. You'll do anything to avoid it. Procrastination is what we do in life because we want to avoid making other people uncomfortable. So we'd rather feel discomfort ourselves. And that's not fair to us. And it'll eat at us. Everybody's wants to do the best we can within the relationships that we have, but we do better with boundaries. That's what we do. We do better with boundaries. And boundaries are important. They're not walls, they're the hula hoops. People can still touch us. They can still hear us. They can still contribute. They can still be part of our lives and part of our families. They're there as a hula hoop to remind us, as the visual of a hula hoop. It's a great visual that it's okay to have them. It's okay to be seen and heard and felt within a boundary. You don't need to push someone away with a wall and be cold and harsh. You can pull away with a hula hoop, still let them know that you're seen and you're heard and you're felt, and they are too, seen, held and felt and heard. But a hula hoop is where you start. It's that small circle, 1.5 feet from your body. Picture it. When someone's too close to you in an elevator or a hallway or in a room or even in a family, you can just pull away. You can just say, no, stay out of my hula hoop today. And I used to always say that. I had a friend that stood too close to me. I love them very much. And they used to come really close and be a close talker. And I used to kid and say, hey, stay out of my hula hoop right now. I just can't have that energy taking over mine, right? I couldn't have the volume. I couldn't have their desire to be heard over my desire to be felt, right? So that's what's important. I just want you to really think about a boundary and how healthy they are. They're not harsh. They're not cold. They're not a wall without windows. They're a hula hoop. They're something thin, something small that we can see through, we can touch, and we can feel. We can even be heard with them. Everybody can have relationships with a hula hoop. They're much better than a wall, and we can all do it today. And understand that those hula hoops, yes, they may keep people out, and people might not like them. Like them for yourself. It's important for you to have them. It's important for you to breathe with that 18 inches of room and to feel empowered by having a boundary. You can enforce it. You can do it. So don't drop the hula hoop. Don't step out of it. Hold it tight. Hold it firmly around your waist. Use it. Use it as a visual. Use it as a tool. And you can even say it out loud. Hey, stay out of my hula hoop. It's important to start with boundaries. As you start, they'll be painful. You'll feel guilt. You'll feel everything that comes with them, the stomach, the headache. The more you do them, the less you feel the negative, and the more powerful, the more positive you feel. So I really, really thank you for showing up here today. Thank you for showing up for yourself. This is the start. This is the beginning. And together we can do this. So thanks for listening. I'll see you next time. And until then, keep chasing purpose.